Here's something important about the pipeline. Not everyone who grows up in fundamentalism ends up radicalized. The differential outcomes matter because they tell us what protects against radicalization and what makes it more likely. The research on this is extensive and the protective factors are knowable. I have 3 master's degrees, including one in criminology, which is where this research lives. And I want to walk through what the academic literature has identified. The Wolfowicz 2019 meta-analysis I have referenced throughout this series identified specific protective factors that predict whether someone exposed to radicalization risk factors actually radicalizes. Let me walk through the documented protective factors. The first protective factor is education, particularly education in domains that involve critical thinking and exposure to diverse perspectives. Higher education in fields like sociology, psychology, history, and the natural sciences specifically reduces radicalization risk. The mechanism is documented. Education provides exposure to alternative narratives, develops the cognitive habits of evidentiary reasoning, and creates social contact with people from different backgrounds. The second protective factor is what researchers call outgroup contact, sustained relationships with people from groups the in-group has identified as enemies. Personal relationships humanize abstract categories. The fundamentalist who has been told that LGBTQ people are sinners cannot maintain that abstraction in the face of a beloved cousin who comes out. The framework requires the abstraction. The relationship destroys the abstraction. The third protective factor is socioeconomic stability. Significance Quest Theory predicts that people experience significant losses are more vulnerable to radicalization. Economic precarity, job loss, and identity threats all increase significance Quest activation. People in stable circumstances with strong existing sources of meaning are more resistant to the appeals of extremist narratives. The fourth protective factor is institutional legitimacy. People who trust mainstream institutions and feel represented by political processes are less vulnerable to radicalization. People who feel their concerns are dismissed by mainstream institutions are more vulnerable to alternative narratives that explain their grievances and identify enemies. The fifth protective factor is what researchers call counter-narrative exposure. Access to alternative explanations for the experiences and grievances that the radicalizing narrative is offering to explain. The fundamentalist who has only one explanation for why their community is struggling will accept whatever explanation the in-group provides. The fundamentalist who has multiple explanations available can evaluate them. These protective factors are also predictors. People who lack them are more vulnerable to radicalization. Significance loss combined with exclusive in-group networks, combined with no exposure to outgroups, combined with no alternative narratives equals radicalization. Significant stability combined with diverse networks, combined with alternative narratives equals resistance to radicalization, even when the person comes from a high-risk fundamentalist environment. This research matters because it tells us that radicalization is not destiny. It is the result of specific conditions. Change the conditions, you change the trajectory. The protective factors are documented. They can be deliberately created. This is part 5 of a 6-part series called Fundamentalism to Extremism. Part 6 is the final video, how to actually help someone who is in the pipeline, because everyone watching this is wondering exactly that question.